ASU is establishing a new Center for Free Speech with the goal of encouraging the uninhibited exchange of ideas. The university is also launching a new free speech forum that will bring in national speakers to address issues involving free speech. ASU Executive Vice Provost Patrick Kenny is here to tell us more. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Center for Free Speech. It's new. It sounds kind of self-explanatory, but you tell me.
So free speech, embedded in the First Amendment, is a key aspect for democracy, but it's also a key aspect for higher education, where one of our goals, among many at the university, is to introduce students to a wide range, the marketplace of ideas, so they can think critically, view things through their lens that they want to view them through, and have an example of all kinds of different kind of speech.
When it's encouraging the uninhibited exchange of ideas, explain and define uninhibited in this context.
So in this context, and that's actually, that phrase, or very close to it, is part of what we call the Chicago Principles. Okay. And the University of Chicago went forward quite a while ago now that said, universities must adhere to that phrase, or very close to it, paraphrasing that. And that means students should be able to come to any university, frankly, that signs on to this concept, and be able to reach out and be exposed to any number of different concepts and ideas, along with all the regular training that they're undergoing, like in mathematics or poetry or physics or whatever they're trying to learn. But they should be able to sample these different ideas about democracy, about government, about life in the world, all kinds of different things.
But when it's uninhibited and it's a free exchange of ideas, define ideas. I mean, you're not going to bring someone in here who says the earth is flat, are you?
No, most likely not that particular example, but we could bring in people that are holding ideas that very few people believe or wonder about or have questions about. And that helps educate folks to kind of weigh these different ideas and hear compelling evidence for and against.
As far as breaking the student code of conduct, infringing on other students' rights, I imagine that's over there. That you can't go that far.
Correct. So President Crow has been really firm on that. He kind of put his foot strongly down on free speech is something the university embraces, but simultaneously you can't interrupt the business of the university. There's so many students at ASU now, so many faculty, so many grants, so many projects going on, that the business must go on. You can't interrupt that, but you can protest, you can speak your mind, you can have certain views, and you can hold them, and hold them strongly, and you can do that throughout the day, but you can't interrupt the rest of the business of the university.
Is there a governing board that decides which speaker is allowed and maybe this speaker's a bit too much?
So one thing that people don't realize is any faculty member can bring guests into their classroom as long as it connects closely to whatever the content that they're looking at. Okay, we don't even monitor that, frankly. We trust the faculty to do that. There will be, this is a fledgling center, it's getting up and going, there will be a board that's going to oversee that. It's going to be small, but private citizens, unconnected to the university in a formal way. We're not paying them, and they will help guide the new director in deciding how to select candidates for that.
And this starts next semester?
I think it'll start next semester, spring 2025. We'll definitely have a symposium, a nationwide symposium, nationwide meaning bring guests and speakers from across the country, or frankly across the world, depending on what topics they're looking at.
What was the impetus for this?
I think the impetus, well, ASU, President Crow and ASU has been on board for this for a long time, and you see that in something called the FIRE rating, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. That's a foundation, a private foundation, a nonprofit that ranks universities around the country about how open are they to free speech principles and content and those kinds of things. We've had a very high FIRE rating for a long time. We're not in the top 10, and President Crow has now challenged us to get into the top 10, not surprisingly. And so we're thinking about how to do that. So I think the impetus, frankly, is just, democracy's going through a lot of discussion about what concepts are open for debate, what public policy looks like, and our students need to be exposed to that.
It sounds to me as if both sides are looking at ASU and saying they got a problem with free speech. Even though the high ratings, you got the hijab problem there on one side, you got conservatives saying that conservative voices are being quelled on the other side.
Right.
How you square in that circle?
So I actually think that day-to-day operations of the university, class by class, all the different levels of education that are going on, I'm not sure that's a big a problem as people might anticipate. What sometimes captures people's attention, interest, and critique is who we bring in across the university to give speeches, talks on all kinds of topics, and they often come in on highly controversial topics that are divided both internationally and in the country. And I think either side of the political spectrum then look at that and say, are they favoring one over the other? I think we've kept a very careful look at that. There's a long list of long list of guests we've brought in over the years, and it's pretty remarkably balanced.
When you say you keep a track of that,
yes.
Look at it, is there literally a chart? Is there literally a list? Or
there is a list. How far it goes back, I'm not sure, but there is a list of at least 25, 30 people on it.
Yeah, and they basically make sure it doesn't tilt one way or the
Correct.
other.
We work hard at that. Right.
All right, so start sometime next year.
Yes.
Center for Free Speech here. If people want to find out more about this, where?
Sure. Soon we'll have a website up, and they can tap into it there. We're working also on a broad kind of framework around what can higher education do to make democracy work in the 21st century. There'll be a nice big web page for that, and this will be one of the centers under it.
I was going to say, you left me a big one there before you go. So last question here, what can universities do?
I think the biggest thing universities can do is get the next generation of people who are going to go out and do all the work of government, either volunteer work or actually work in all of our federal structure, right? From state and local school boards all the way to United States Congress. We need to get those young people enthused and engaged and interested in doing that work. And I think that's upon us to bring speakers, introduce them to the political class, to get them to understand what the values of doing that kind of work. We need to send as many people into that as we send into other professions, nursing, business, all those kinds of things.
Patrick Kenny, ASU Executive Vice Provost. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.